All right. So last week we talked about one of my favorite things, user experience, but we were very focused on the end user. So I think it's important for us to kind of, carry that through and talk about the admin experience. So today we're going to try to demystify, for anyone who's curious, who maybe wants to start playing around with Border Zero, at home or is interested in using it for their team, what does it actually take to get started?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody says their product is easy to use, but in practice, that might not always be the case. In fact, I remember, not that long ago, that, we would install some hardware and I had to be in training sessions for like one full week of like hands-on lab work and all that kind of stuff. Now, luckily, most of those days are over. I can't tell you how many times I've bought that certain technology and wanted to play with it. And it's like, oh, I'm going to park this because I need to find a weekend or a few days to do this. And I think it's very nice that with Border Zero, we've put a lot of emphasis on making it just really easy to get started. So it literally only takes like a minute to install your first connector and your first VPN gateway, and then another few minutes to do your typical day two tasks. So I think it's quite a world of difference.
Yeah, it's one of my absolute favorite moments is when we're on a client call and someone remarks, "Wow, it was that fast. It's done." So I think
Yeah, that's it.
in that spirit, I think, while we demo, I'm gonna use my stopwatch and hold you to this promise of saying it's only a few minutes here.
Oh, you want me to demo this live? All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, well, let me share my screen. Okay, so I have the Border Zero portal open here, and I have a test machine. So I would say, Judge, start your timer.
All right.
So like I said, the first step of getting started with Border Zero is that you typically need to install a connector, and the connector you can think of essentially your VPN appliance or concentrator, as well as your privileged access management proxy, all in one lightweight package. So I already talked a lot. I've been abusing my time. So let's start. So I go to the connector space, add new connector, click on Linux, copy this command, paste that into the terminal of the server that I have ready, so regular Linux machines. And as you can see, what happens here, it downloads the binary, installs it, creates a systemd service so that it starts, and it registers itself. And now we go back to the portal and see it refreshed, and it's already done. So that's it. No virtual machine, no appliances, no images, no setup scripts, just one command, and your secure access gateway is ready for use. So I don't know what the time was,
All
but
right. I think even with your extra chatter, it was only 45
yeah,
seconds.
it's
So I
under a
think
minute,
it's
right?
pretty
Yeah.
good.
And I wasn't really trying that hard. And so what I think is really nice is that, I hope that takes away, if you're like maybe intimidated to start new technology, it's like, oh, it's actually really that easy. And from a business point of view, that means, it's just easy to get started, less downtime, no hardware cost, not many bottlenecks for scaling, all that kind of stuff. It's just super easy to get going.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. So okay. So that was 45 seconds. Setup is done. We've got our connector, but then what happens? What's next?
Yeah, so now it's about making resources available, and a resource, we call them sockets, but they are essentially different things. They're secure doorways into your system.
Mm,
And these could be like specific MySQL clusters or databases or Kubernetes clusters.
mhm.
Or, a really good starting point is maybe a VPN resource, like a split VPN. And I
Mhm.
mean, there's multiple things, exit nodes, etc. But let's, for this demo, create a split VPN, and we're going to make available a private VPC that I have in AWS and make it available to my clients, right? So
Okay.
let's do that. If you want to, you can start your timer
All
again.
right. All right.
See what happens?
Ready.
So, all right, cool. So I'll go back to the Border Zero portal here, and I'll go to sockets, and I create a new socket. So you can see we have a whole bunch of different types. I'll click on this one here, which is a subnet router, which is essentially that split VPN. I'll give it a name, type in US East 1, and then I give it the IP address range, so 10.10.0/16. I link it to my connector, I hit create, and that's it. So this will now be synced to the connector. Yeah, you can stop your timer
All
and
right.
tell us
Not
quickly what it
even
was.
30 seconds.
All right, yeah, so
Pretty
30
good.
seconds.
All right.
but I'll prove you that it works as well. But this is all real time. This is synced to the connector now. And sort of the other side I can do is share my desktop here. And what if I execute this command that will show me if I have a route now. And you can see that 10.10.0/16 route is pushed to my desktop all in real time. And now basically traffic to that will go over the VPN and I can access resources in there. So that's basically how easy it is. So I think in both cases, we say a minute each, but that's actually very liberal. It's like maybe 15 seconds per task if you know what you're doing, and it's pretty intuitive. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's your VPN, but reimagined, super fast to configure, policy driven, identity aware, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's just really cool, and I love how easy it is. I've definitely heard from clients before that, it can take like weeks, if not months, to set up a new access tool. So yeah, certainly trimming down that process. But all right, so we have, our connector, we can get access to, an exit node or maybe some resources. But how do I like make this something that my entire team can use? How am I pulling in all of the policies? How am I making this accessible to everyone?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, that's where Border Zero really shines, I think. We talked so far about day one, which is
Mhm.
really minute one, maybe minute two. But now let's talk about what we typically call day two, right? And this is all about the daily usage, scaling up, adding, your whole company to this. And this is what I'm thinking about user management, right? And
Mhm.
so for that, we allow you to bring your own identity providers, be it Okta or Google, or really any SAML or OIDC providers. You can bring
Mhm.
that in. I won't go over that, but it's also like a few minutes to set up. And then, of course, you need to import all of your users that you have in that identity system. And so for that, we use Skim. It's also super easy to set up, which allows you to simply sync all of your users from your enterprise user system like Okta into our system and making all those users available into Border Zero as well as all of the groups. Um, and we'll take a look at that in a bit. So next up, maybe a new user starts. You need to make sure that the VPN client, the Bordeaux client's on their desktop. So we support various MDMs like Kanji and Intune to make sure that the Bordeaux clients are on these users' laptops and that they're kept up to date. Next up, we can briefly talk about infrastructure as code. So we have some customers that literally have thousands of what we call sockets or resources that they need to make available. Yeah, you don't want to click for 1,000, even though it's only a minute, that's still 1,000 minutes in the portal. So for that, we support Terraform, and you can basically codify your entire infrastructure with Border Zero as well. So you can really do infrastructure as code. And so yeah, those are just some of the sort of day two examples. I think that make that easy, that make this enterprise ready. So maybe just to stay in the demo shape here. So what we see here is our access graph, and you can see that there's only that new VPN, split VPN that I just made available. There's only one user in there, myself. So what I want to do is actually, hey, everyone in the engineering group should have access to that.
Mhm.
So what I'll do is I'll update this policy and I'll add the skim group engineering, for example, right? I'll hit save. And this is all real time. So now immediately all the other engineers that have the Boardizero client installed will have that same route pushed to them and can now access this. And I can validate that by going to this access graph, which shows you a really nice visualization of who has access to what. So yeah, that's just a ton of coverage and tasks that I think that we just talked about that tend to take a lot of time, and we put a lot of effort in making that super simple and easy to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, these are real tangible benefits for any team. We showed, how to take like virtual like seconds to get set up. But it's obviously very easy to set up. It's very easy to maintain. You can use infrastructure as code to help with some of that maintenance. There's just all in all fewer access issues and fewer support tickets, and it's really easy to scale either your team or your environment as they grow.
Yeah, exactly. And Border Zero unifies VPN and privilege access management into one platform. So that's another kind of advantage, right? You're not managing two vendors, two tool chains, two solutions. It's one platform, one policy model, one client, and one audit trail. And I think that simplicity just doesn't just make the admins happier, but it also helps your business to move faster, stay secure, and spend less.